I never thought I'd be writing this from a police station holding cell, but here I am. My whole life has imploded in the span of a few hours. I caught my wife Jessica cheating, beat up her lover, and now I'm facing assault charges. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me start from the beginning and explain how I ended up here. My name is Mike, and up until today I thought I had a pretty normal, stable life. I've been married to Jessica for 8 years, and we have a nice little house in the suburbs. I work as a long-haul truck driver, which means I'm on the road a lot. It's not glamorous work, but it pays the bills and allows Jessica to be a stay-at-home wife. When I'm home, our routine is pretty simple. I work during the day, then come home to beer, TV, and maybe some video games in the evening. Jessica takes care of the house and cooks dinner most nights. It's not exciting, but it's comfortable. At least it was comfortable. Looking back, I can see now that things started to change about 6 months ago. My job is pretty sedentary. I sit in a truck all day, then come home and sit on the couch all evening. Plus, I have a weakness for gas station snacks and fast food on the road. Slowly but surely, I packed on quite a few extra pounds. I went from being in decent shape to downright pudgy. My once flat stomach turned into a proper beer gut. I didn't think much of it at first. Jessica never said anything directly about my weight gain, but I started to notice little comments here and there. She'd suggest healthier dinner options or say things like, "Maybe we should go for a walk after dinner instead of watching TV." I brushed it off. I was comfortable with my dad bod. The real wake-up call came when our sex life started to fizzle out. We went from being intimate 4 times a week to maybe once every couple weeks, if that. Jessica always seemed to have an excuse. She was tired, she had a headache, she wasn't in the mood. I chalked it up to the natural ebb and flow of a long-term relationship. But then one night, after another rejected advance, Jessica finally said what was on her mind. "Mike, I'm worried about your health. You've gained a lot of weight and you never want to do anything active anymore. I miss the fit, energetic guy I married. Maybe you should think about joining a gym or something." I was taken aback. Sure, I'd put on a few pounds, but I didn't think it was that bad. "Come on, Jess. I work hard to provide for us. Can a guy relax and enjoy some downtime?" She sighed. "Of course you can relax, but your lifestyle isn't healthy. I want us to grow old together, not for you to have a heart attack at 50. Plus," she hesitated. "Plus what?" "Plus, I'll be honest, I'm not as physically attracted to you as I used to be. I love you, but I miss feeling that spark." Ouch, that stung. I knew she was probably right, but it still hurt to hear. We argued a bit more, but eventually I agreed to give the gym a try. Jessica seemed relieved and grateful. She even offered to pay for a gym membership as an early birthday gift. So that's how I found myself signing up at the local 24-hour fitness. I felt pretty out of place at first, surrounded by buff guys and fit women in tight workout clothes. But I was determined to get back in shape, both for my health and to reignite that spark with Jessica. I started going to the gym 4 times a week after work. It was tough at first. I was sore all the time and could barely do a few minutes on the treadmill. But I stuck with it. I met with a trainer who showed me how to use the weight machines and gave me a beginner's workout plan. Slowly but surely, I started to see results. The number on the scale began to drop. My clothes fit better. I had more energy throughout the day. And most importantly, things seemed to be improving with Jessica. She commented on how good I was looking and initiated sex more often. I felt great, like I was getting my life and my marriage back on track. If only I knew then how wrong I was, how naive I was. Because it turns out Jessica's renewed interest in me had nothing to do with my weight loss. No, she had found her spark elsewhere. But I'm getting ahead of myself again. About 2 months into my new gym routine, I pulled into the parking lot one evening ready for my usual workout. But something was off. The lights were dim, and there was a sign on the door. "Closed for renovations. We apologize for the inconvenience. We will reopen in 3 days." Well, that was annoying. I'd driven all the way there for nothing. I debated going for a jog around the neighborhood instead, but I didn't have the right shoes with me. Plus, if I was being honest, I was kind of relieved to have a night off. So I decided to head home early and surprise Jessica. In hindsight, I should have gone for that jog. Because what I found when I got home changed everything. But that's a story for another post. Right now, the officer is telling me my time is up and I need to get off my phone. I'll update when I can with the rest of this crazy story. Still can't believe this is my life now. All right, I'm back. The officer let me have my phone again for a bit. Where was I? Oh, right, the gym being closed. Let me backtrack a little and give you more context about my gym journey before I get to the night everything fell apart. Like I said, I started going to the gym 4 times a week. At first, it was brutal. I'd come home exhausted, muscles aching, wondering why the hell I was putting myself through this torture. But Jessica was so supportive and encouraging. She'd have a protein shake ready for me when I got home, give me back rubs to ease my sore muscles, tell me how proud she was of my dedication. It made me want to keep going, to make her proud. After a few weeks, something strange happened. I actually started to enjoy it. The endorphin rush after a good workout became addictive. I looked forward to pushing myself a little harder each time, seeing how much more I could lift or how much longer I could run. I befriended some of the regulars at the gym. There was Tom, a retired Marine who became my unofficial workout buddy. He'd spot me on the bench press and give me tips on proper form. Then there was Sarah, a perky personal trainer who always had a smile and a word of encouragement for everyone. And Carlos, the front desk guy who would fist bump me on my way in and out. As the weeks turned into months, I started to see real changes in my body. The beer gut began to shrink. I could see muscles I forgot I had. My face looked slimmer, my jawline more defined, even my posture improved. I stood taller, more confident. Jessica noticed too. She'd run her hands over my arms, commenting on my growing biceps. She started initiating sex more often, telling me how hot I looked. It made me feel like $1,000,000. I thought we were falling in love all over again. But it wasn't just physical changes. I had more energy throughout the day. I slept better at night. My mood improved. I felt more positive and upbeat. Even my work performance got better. I was more alert on long drives, more efficient at loading and unloading. I started making other small changes too. I swapped out my gas station snacks for protein bars and fruit. Instead of beer every night, I'd have a beer or two on weekends only. Jessica and I started going for walks in the evening, or playing tennis at the local park on weekends. Everything seemed to be going great. Sure, Jessica had been acting a little strange lately. She seemed distracted sometimes, and was on her phone more than usual. But I chalked it up to her starting a new part-time job as a virtual assistant. She said she wanted to contribute to our income and have something to do while I was on the road. I was proud of her for taking initiative. So when I pulled up to the gym that fateful evening and saw it was closed, I was pretty disappointed. I'd gotten into such a good routine. The sign said they were closed for renovations, installing new air conditioning, bringing in some new machines, repainting the locker rooms. It would only be for 3 days, but it felt like a major disruption to my schedule. I sat in my truck for a few minutes, debating what to do. I could go for a run around the neighborhood, but I didn't have the right shoes with me. I could go home and do some bodyweight exercises, but it wouldn't be the same as my usual workout. Part of me just wanted to say screw it and take the night off. That's when I had what I thought was a brilliant idea. I'd go home and surprise Jessica. Maybe we could have a spontaneous date night, go out to dinner or watch a movie. She was always saying how she missed spending time together like we used to before I started my gym routine. I stopped by the florist on the way home and picked up a bouquet of lilies, Jessica's favorite. I was feeling pretty good about myself, imagining how happy and surprised she'd be to see me home early. As I turned onto our street, I noticed an unfamiliar car parked a few houses down from ours. It was a sleek black BMW, definitely not something you see often in our middle-class neighborhood. I didn't think much of it at the time, probably just someone visiting one of the neighbors. I pulled into our driveway, grabbed the flowers, and headed to the front door. I was about to use my key when I decided to ring the doorbell instead, really make it a surprise. I waited, but there was no answer. I could hear music playing faintly inside, so I knew Jessica was home. I used my key and went in. "Honey, I'm home early," I called out. No response. The music was coming from upstairs. I climbed the stairs, still holding the flowers, wondering if maybe she was in the shower and couldn't hear me over the music. As I reached the top of the stairs, I heard the shower running. Mystery solved. I approached the bathroom, planning to leave the flowers on the counter as a surprise for when she got out. But as I got closer, I heard something that made me freeze in my tracks. It was Jessica's voice, but not like I'd ever heard it before. She was moaning, loudly, the kind of sounds she used to make when we first got married and couldn't keep our hands off each other. The kind of sounds I hadn't heard from her in years. For a moment, I stood there paralyzed. My brain couldn't process what I was hearing. Was she pleasuring herself in the shower? That didn't seem like Jessica at all. And then I heard it. A deep, masculine chuckle that definitely didn't come from me. My blood ran cold. This couldn't be happening. It had to be a mistake, a misunderstanding. Maybe I was having some kind of stress-induced hallucination. I took a step closer to the bathroom door, which was slightly ajar. That's when I saw it. A flash of skin that wasn't Jessica's, a muscular arm reaching for her, and I heard a voice that made my stomach drop. "God, Jess, you're so fucking hot!" I stumbled backwards, nearly falling down the stairs. My mind was reeling. This couldn't be real. My Jessica, my wife of 8 years, the woman I thought I knew better than anyone in the world, was in our shower with another man. I don't remember leaving the house. The next thing I knew, I was sitting in my truck, still clutching the damn flowers. I sat there for what felt like hours, watching the house, waiting. Eventually, I saw the black BMW pull out of its spot and drive away. My world had just shattered into a million pieces, and I had no idea what to do next. But little did I know this was just the beginning of the nightmare. I sat in my truck for what felt like hours, just staring at our house. My mind was racing, trying to make sense of what I'd just witnessed. Part of me wanted to burst back in there and confront Jessica immediately. Another part wanted to drive away and never look back. In the end, I did neither. Instead, I pulled myself together enough to drive around the block a few times, giving myself time to think. When I finally returned home, the BMW was gone. I took a deep breath and went inside. Jessica was in the kitchen, chopping vegetables for dinner like nothing had happened. She looked up when I came in, surprise flickering across her face. "You're home early. I thought you had gym tonight." I studied her face, looking for any sign of guilt or nervousness, but she seemed completely normal. If I hadn't seen and heard what I did, I never would have suspected a thing. "Yeah, the gym was closed for renovations," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "I thought I'd surprise you." She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "That's sweet. But you should have called first. I was just about to jump in the shower." The lie hit me like a punch to the gut. She had no idea I knew. I wanted to scream, to shake her, to demand answers, but something held me back. Maybe it was shock, or maybe some part of me still hoped there was an explanation that wouldn't destroy our marriage. "Oh, okay," I said, hating how weak my voice sounded. "I'll just watch some TV then." I retreated to the living room, my mind whirling. As I flipped mindlessly through channels, I could hear Jessica moving around upstairs, probably cleaning up any evidence of her guest. The thought made me feel sick. That night was torture. We ate dinner in near silence, Jessica occasionally trying to make small talk that I barely responded to. I couldn't look at her without seeing flashes of what I'd witnessed earlier. Every time she touched her phone, I wondered if she was texting him. I lay awake most of the night, staring at the ceiling while Jessica slept peacefully beside me. How long had this been going on? Was it just a one-time thing, or had she been cheating on me our entire marriage? And who was this guy? The next morning, I called in sick to work. I couldn't face a long-haul drive in my current state of mind. Jessica seemed concerned, asking if I was feeling okay. The irony of her pretending to care about my well-being wasn't lost on me. "Just a stomach bug," I lied. "I'll be fine. You should go to work." She hesitated, then nodded. "Okay, if you're sure. I'll check on you at lunch." As soon as she left, I started searching the house. I'm not proud of it, but I went through her drawers, her purse, her laptop. I was looking for any clue, any evidence of her affair. But Jessica was smart. There was nothing obvious to find. I did notice one thing, though. She had a passcode on her phone now. She never used to lock her phone. When did that change? And why? The next 2 days passed in a haze of suspicion and barely contained rage. I pretended to be sick, staying home while Jessica went about her normal routine. She seemed a little on edge, probably wondering why I was suddenly home all the time, but she didn't slip up or give anything away. On the 3rd day, the gym reopened. I debated whether to go or not. Part of me wanted to stay home, to keep watching Jessica, but I knew I needed to get out of the house before I exploded, so I went to the gym, going through the motions of my usual workout. But my heart wasn't in it. I couldn't stop thinking about Jessica, wondering what she was doing while I was gone. That's when I had an idea. A terrible, invasive idea that I'm not proud of. But I was desperate for answers. I left the gym early and drove to a nearby electronics store. I bought a small, hidden camera, the kind people use for home security. Then I went home, making sure Jessica wasn't there, and set it up in our bedroom. I know, it was a massive invasion of privacy. If you had told me a week ago that I'd be secretly filming my own bedroom, I would have said you were crazy. But finding out your wife is cheating on you can make you do crazy things. The next day, I pretended to go to work as usual, but instead of starting my route, I parked a few blocks away and waited. About an hour after I left, I saw a car pull up to our house. It was the black BMW. My heart started racing as I watched a man get out of the car. Even from a distance, I could tell he was younger than me, probably in his early 30s. He was tall, muscular, the kind of guy you'd see on the cover of a fitness magazine. Exactly the kind of guy I'd been trying to become at the gym. He walked up to our front door like he owned the place. Jessica answered immediately. She must have been waiting for him. They embraced and kissed right there on the porch, not even bothering to check if anyone was watching. Then they disappeared inside. I sat there in my truck shaking with a mixture of rage and heartbreak. I wanted to storm in there and confront them. I wanted to beat that guy to a pulp, but I forced myself to stay put. I needed more evidence. I needed to know exactly what I was dealing with. So I waited and waited. Nearly 2 hours passed before the BMW guy left. 2 hours of imagining what they were doing in my house, in my bed. It was agonizing. As soon as he drove away, I rushed home. Jessica was in the shower. Again. I went straight to the hidden camera and retrieved the memory card. With shaking hands, I plugged it into my laptop. And there it was. Undeniable proof of my wife's infidelity. I watched in horror as Jessica and her lover entered our bedroom, kissing passionately. They wasted no time getting undressed. And then, well, let's just say I saw things I can never unsee. I slammed the laptop shut, feeling like I was going to be sick. It was real. It was all real. My wife, the woman I loved, the woman I thought I'd spend the rest of my life with, was cheating on me. And not just a one-time mistake. This was clearly an ongoing affair. I don't know how long I sat there staring at nothing, but eventually, I heard Jessica coming downstairs. I quickly hid the camera and the laptop. I couldn't confront her. Not yet. I needed time to process, to plan my next move. The next few days were a blur of pain, anger, and confusion. I went through the motions of daily life, pretending everything was normal while my world crumbled around me. Jessica seemed oblivious to my inner turmoil, going about her routine as if she hadn't just shattered our marriage into a million pieces. I couldn't sleep, couldn't eat. Every time I looked at her, all I could see was her with him, in our bed, in our home. The images from that hidden camera haunted me day and night. I knew I needed to confront her, but I was paralyzed by indecision. Part of me wanted to scream at her, to demand answers, to make her feel even a fraction of the pain I was feeling. But another part of me was terrified of what would happen when I did. Would she deny it? Try to justify it? Or would she simply leave me for her younger, fitter lover? In the end, it was my friend Tom from the gym who pushed me to action. I hadn't been to the gym in days, and he texted to check on me. Without really thinking it through, I poured out the whole story to him. Tom's response was immediate and forceful. "You need to confront her, man. You can't live like this. And you need to find out who this guy is. What if he's married too? His wife deserves to know." He was right, of course. I couldn't go on like this, pretending everything was fine while dying inside. And the more I thought about it, the more I realized I needed to know who this other man was. Not just for closure, but because Tom was right. If he was married, his wife had a right to know too. So I hatched a plan. The next time Jessica said she was going to work, I decided to follow her. I borrowed a friend's car so she wouldn't recognize me tailing her. I felt like a character in some cheesy detective movie, but I was desperate for answers. Sure enough, Jessica didn't go to work. Instead, she drove to a nice apartment complex across town. I watched as she parked and went inside, using a key like she owned the place. My heart sank. This wasn't just some random hookup. She had a key to his place. I waited for what felt like hours, my mind conjuring up all sorts of horrible images of what they might be doing inside. Finally, Jessica emerged, looking flushed and happy in a way I hadn't seen her look in years. She was followed by Mr. BMW himself. They kissed goodbye right there in the parking lot, not a care in the world for who might see them. As Jessica drove away, I got my first good look at the man who had stolen my wife. He was everything I wasn't. Tall, muscular, with perfect hair and teeth that gleamed even from a distance. He looked like he'd walked straight out of a magazine ad. I hated him instantly. I watched as he got into his car, that damn black BMW, and drove off. Without really thinking it through, I followed him. He led me to a nearby gym, a fancy upscale place that made my 24-hour fitness look like a high school weight room. I parked across the street and watched as he went inside. The sign on the building said, Elite Fitness, and underneath, in smaller letters, Jason Thompson, owner and head trainer. Jason Thompson. So that was his name. The man who had destroyed my marriage had a name, a face, a business. He was real, not just some nameless, faceless threat. I sat there for a long time, watching people come and go from the gym. I saw Jason through the window, training clients, laughing and chatting. He looked so carefree, so happy. Did he even think about the fact that he was ruining someone's marriage? Did he care? When I finally drove home, I was in a daze. I had a name now, a face to put to my anger and pain. But what was I supposed to do with this information? I spent the next day researching Jason Thompson online. I found his business website, his social media profiles. He was 32 years old, single, at least according to Facebook, a former college athlete turned personal trainer. His Instagram was full of shirtless workout videos and motivational quotes. The more I learned about him, the angrier I got. This guy had everything: looks, money, success. And now he had my wife too. It wasn't fair. None of it was fair. That night, when Jessica got home from work, I couldn't hold it in anymore. As soon as she walked in the door, I exploded. "How long have you been fucking Jason Thompson?" I shouted. Jessica froze, her face going pale. "Mike, what are you talking about? Don't lie to me!" I was shaking with rage now. "I know everything! I saw you with him! I have proof!" Jessica's eyes darted around the room like she was looking for an escape route. Then, to my surprise, her shoulders slumped and she started to cry. "I'm sorry," she sobbed. "I'm so sorry, Mike. I never meant for this to happen." Her tears only fueled my anger. "You never meant for it to happen? What, did you trip and fall on his dick? How long has this been going on?" Between sobs, Jessica confessed everything. She had met Jason at a coffee shop near her new job about 3 months ago. They started talking, and one thing led to another. She swore it wasn't just about sex. She had feelings for him. "I love you, Mike," she said, reaching for me. I jerked away from her touch. "But with Jason, I feel alive again. He makes me feel beautiful, desired. When was the last time you made me feel that way?" Her words were like a knife to my heart. "So this is my fault? Because I gained some weight? Because I was working hard to provide for us?" No, she said quickly. "It's not your fault. It's mine. I'm weak. I'm selfish. But Mike, we haven't been happy for a long time. You know that." I wanted to argue, to tell her she was wrong. But deep down, I knew she was right. We hadn't been truly happy in years. We'd fallen into a routine, taken each other for granted. But did that justify cheating? "I want a divorce," I heard myself say. The words hung in the air between us, heavy and final. Jessica nodded, tears still streaming down her face. "I understand. I'm so sorry, Mike. I never wanted to hurt you." As I stormed out of the house, leaving Jessica crying on the couch, I felt a strange mix of emotions. I was angry, devastated, but also relieved. At least now I knew the truth. At least now I could start to move on. The next few days were a blur of pain, anger, and sleepless nights. I moved out of our house, crashing on Tom's couch while I tried to figure out what to do next. Jessica kept calling and texting, begging me to talk to her, to work things out. I ignored every message. One night, after too many beers, I made the mistake of looking at Jessica's Instagram. There it was, posted just hours ago, a picture of her and Jason looking happy and in love. The caption read, "Sometimes you have to follow your heart. #new beginnings." Something in me snapped. All the hurt, all the betrayal, all the anger I'd been holding back came rushing to the surface. Before I knew what I was doing, I was in my truck, driving to Jason's gym. It was late, past closing time, but I could see lights on inside. I parked across the street and watched as Jason locked up. He was alone. Perfect. I got out of my truck, grabbing the baseball bat I kept behind the seat. As Jason walked to his car, I called out, "Hey, asshole!" He turned, confusion on his face. "Can I help you?" "Yeah, you can help me understand why you thought it was okay to fuck my wife," I snarled, advancing on him with the bat raised. Recognition dawned in his eyes, followed quickly by fear. "Whoa, man, let's talk about this," he said, backing away with his hands up. "Talk? You want to talk now? Where was all this talking when you were screwing my wife behind my back?" I swung the bat, aiming for his smug face. Jason ducked, the bat whooshing past his ear. He turned to run, but I was faster. I caught him with a swing to the back, sending him sprawling onto the pavement. "Please!" he gasped, trying to crawl away. "I'm sorry. I didn't know she was married at first. By the time I found out, I was already in love with her." His words only fueled my rage. I kicked him hard in the ribs, hearing a satisfying crack. "In love? You don't even know her. You don't know about her quirks, her fears, her dreams. You don't know how she takes her coffee or what makes her laugh until she snorts. You don't know shit." I raised the bat again, ready to bring it down on his head. But before I could, I heard sirens in the distance. Someone must have called the cops. "This isn't over," I spat, giving Jason one last kick before running back to my truck. I sped away, my heart pounding. What had I done? This wasn't me. I wasn't a violent person, but the sight of Jason, the man who had ruined my life, had brought out a side of me I didn't know existed. I drove aimlessly for hours, replaying the scene in my mind. Part of me felt guilty for what I'd done, but another part, a darker part I didn't want to acknowledge, felt satisfied. Jason had gotten what he deserved. When I finally returned to Tom's place, he was waiting up for me. One look at my face and he knew something was wrong. "What did you do?" he asked, his voice low and serious. I told him everything. To his credit, Tom didn't judge. He just listened, then said, "You need to lay low for a while. Jason will probably press charges." As if on cue, my phone buzzed with a text from Jessica. "What the hell did you do to Jason? The police are looking for you." I ignored it, turning my phone off. Tom was right. I needed to lay low. But where could I go? In the end, I decided to go stay with my brother in the next state over. He didn't ask questions when I showed up on his doorstep at 3 a.m., just let me in and set me up in his spare room. For the next week, I lived in a state of constant anxiety. Every time I heard a car outside, I was sure it was the police coming to arrest me. I checked the local news obsessively, expecting to see my face plastered everywhere as a wanted man. But nothing happened. No police, no news stories. Just silence. Finally, after a week of hiding out, I got a call from Tom. "You need to come back," he said. "Jessica's been trying to reach you. She says it's important." Against my better judgment, I drove back home. Jessica was waiting for me at our house. Well, her house now, I guess. As soon as I walked in, she threw her arms around me, sobbing. "I'm so sorry, Mike. For everything. I made a huge mistake." I stood there stiffly, not returning her embrace. "Why am I here, Jessica? What's so important?" She pulled back, wiping her eyes. "It's Jason. He's not pressing charges against you." I blinked in surprise. What? Why not? Jessica looked down, unable to meet my eyes. Because I told him I'd leave him if he did, and because he's not the man I thought he was. She went on to explain that after my attack, Jason had shown his true colors. He'd become paranoid, jumping at every sound, refusing to leave his apartment. He'd even hit Jessica when she suggested he go to the police. I realized then that I'd thrown away our marriage for nothing, she said, her voice breaking. Jason's not half the man you are, Mike. I was stupid and selfish, and I'm so sorry. I stood there trying to process everything. Part of me wanted to laugh at the irony of it all. Part of me wanted to cry. And part of me, a small but persistent part, wanted to take Jessica in my arms and tell her everything would be okay. But I couldn't do that. Too much had happened. Too many lines had been crossed. I appreciate you telling me this, I said finally, my voice flat. And I'm glad I'm not going to jail. But this doesn't change anything between us, Jessica. We're done. She nodded, fresh tears spilling down her cheeks. I know, I needed you to know that I realize what a mistake I made, and that I'll always love you, even though I know I've lost you forever. As I walked out of that house for the last time, I felt a strange mix of emotions. Relief that I wasn't going to jail, satisfaction that Jason had shown his true colors, sadness for the end of my marriage, but mostly, I felt empty. I got in my truck and started driving, with no real destination in mind. I needed time to think, to process everything that had happened, to figure out who I was now, in this new reality where I wasn't Jessica's husband anymore. As I drove, I realized that this was truly the end of a chapter in my life, but it was also the beginning of a new one. I had no idea what the future held, but for the first time in weeks, I felt a glimmer of hope. Maybe, just maybe, I could start over, build a new life, find happiness again. But first, I had to face the consequences of my actions. And that's how I ended up here, in this police station, writing this all down. Here's the final part, part 6, of the story in approximately 1,000 words. After I left Jessica's house that last time, I drove for hours, just thinking. I knew I couldn't run forever. Even if Jason wasn't pressing charges, I had still assaulted him. I needed to face the consequences of my actions. So I turned myself in, walked right into the police station and told them everything. Well, almost everything. I left out the part about the hidden camera. That's illegal in our state, and I didn't want to add to my problems. The cops were surprisingly understanding. They dealt with plenty of scorned spouses before, though usually it was the cheaters getting beat up, not the other man. They took my statement, fingerprinted me, and put me in this holding cell while they figure out what to do with me. I've had a lot of time to think in here. About Jessica, about our marriage, about the man I thought I was and the man I became when I found out about her affair. I keep asking myself, did I do the right thing? Not turning myself in? I know that was the right call. But everything before that, following Jessica, setting up that camera, attacking Jason, was I justified, or did I go too far? Part of me still feels like Jason deserved what he got. He knowingly slept with a married woman. He broke up our marriage. He caused me more pain than I've ever felt in my life. But another part of me is ashamed. I've never been a violent person. I've always prided myself on being level-headed, on solving problems with words, not fists. What does it say about me that I was capable of such violence? And then there's Jessica. I loved her for so long. We built a life together. We had plans, dreams, and she threw it all away for what? A fling with a younger guy? A momentary thrill? I want to hate her. God, I want to hate her so badly. But I can't. Because as much as it kills me to admit it, she was right about one thing. We hadn't been happy for a long time. I got comfortable. I took her for granted. I stopped trying to impress her, to make her feel special. I focused on work, on providing for us financially, but I forgot about the emotional side of our relationship. Don't get me wrong. That doesn't excuse what she did. Cheating is never okay. If she was unhappy, she should have talked to me. We could have gone to counseling, tried to work things out. Or if it was really that bad, she could have asked for a divorce before starting something with Jason. But I can't pretend I was a perfect husband either. I let our marriage stagnate. I stopped putting in the effort. And while that doesn't justify her actions, it does help me understand them a little better. As for Jason, well, I still think he's a scumbag, but I shouldn't have attacked him. Violence wasn't the answer. It didn't solve anything, and now I'm the one facing legal consequences. The cops tell me I'll probably be charged with assault. They say because it's my first offense, and because Jason isn't pressing charges, I might get off with probation and anger management classes. But there's still a chance I could do some jail time. My job is probably gone. What trucking company wants to hire a guy with an assault charge? The life I knew, the future I had planned, it's all gone now. But you know what? Maybe that's not such a bad thing. Maybe I needed this wake-up call. A chance to start over, to figure out who I really am and what I really want out of life. I'm not the same man I was when this all started. I'm not the naive, trusting husband who thought his marriage was fine. I'm not the angry, vengeful man who attacked Jason with a baseball bat. I'm someone new, someone in between, still figuring it all out. I don't know what the future holds. I don't know if I'll ever be able to trust someone enough to fall in love again. I don't know if I'll be able to forgive Jessica or if I even want to. But I do know this. I'm going to be better. I'm going to learn from this experience. I'm going to work on myself. Not just physically, like I was doing at the gym, but emotionally and mentally too. I want to be the kind of man who can face problems head-on, who can communicate his feelings without resorting to violence. I want to be the kind of man who doesn't take his partner for granted, who shows love and appreciation every day. It's not going to be easy. I've got a long road ahead of me, legal battles, probably some therapy, rebuilding my life from the ground up. But I'm ready for it. For the first time in a long time, I feel alive. Like I'm not just going through the motions anymore. So that's my story, folks. A cautionary tale of love, betrayal, and the mistakes we make when we're hurt and angry. I'm not proud of everything I did, but I'm trying to own up to my mistakes and move forward. I'm not looking for pity or validation. I know I messed up. I'm just looking for advice, for perspective. Because right now, sitting in this holding cell, I could really use some wisdom. They're telling me my time's almost up. I've got to meet with my lawyer soon, figure out what comes next legally. But before I go, I just want to say thank you. Thank you for listening to my story, for letting me get this all off my chest. And to Jessica, if by some chance you ever read this, I'm sorry too. Sorry for not being the husband you needed. Sorry for not seeing the problems in our marriage sooner. I hope you find happiness, even if it's not with Jason. As for me, well, I guess this is the start of a new chapter. Wish me luck, folks. I think I'm gonna need it.